I was going to take the day off of recording an episode today, but I felt so compelled to talk about this topic because once I thought about how we limit ourselves to literally an imaginary box, I felt a rush of excitement and I just knew that I kind of had to speak about this. And that is, it's so crazy that we don't even realize how we determine the way that our life is going to flow about. We determine how limited we are and where our ceiling exactly is. And we don't realize that entire process is completely psychological. Not only is it psychological, it's actually based and it's being held together mostly through fear and a lot of it anxiety. I want you to think about something that makes you anxious, right? I want you to think about either that's a situation, either that's an event or a conversation, even a fear, whatever it may be. And I want you to think about how if that anxiety, if that fear were to somehow get in the way of something you had planned, how you might maneuver yourself in your life to avoid going through anything like that. And even more so, I want you to realize how much you are actually allowing this certain fear and anxiety to determine what is completely possible in your life. And this comes back to we attach ourselves to a version of who we are that is already embedded with those anxieties and fears, and we don't realize those anxieties and fears, they actually are on the surface level of who we are. If we are an ocean, they float atop like birds who are looking for fish to eat out of the ocean. And we don't realize that we are separate from these limitations. We are separate from these anxieties. And through repeating an identity, through repeating a certain series of behaviors, we can actually start to untangle that system that we've created. And there's two sort of factors here, right? And the first one I want to talk about is emotionally. So, in the way in which we limit ourselves, sometimes when we start to think about what our life is capable of, so we are sitting in our room, we have this good idea, whatever it may be, and we start to dream of a life that is in some way, shape, or form grander to the one that we're living now, there comes an emotional impulse that is almost a sense of anxiety slash excitement slash nervousness. And we have a hard time inferring what that feeling is because we don't trust ourselves enough in the process of life. And this is what I mean by that. I'll expand upon that. And it's that when we spend a lot of time alone, when we spend a lot of time avoiding fear and anxiety instead of confronting it, and instead of, sort of trailblazing through it when living life, we don't trust ourselves to not only make decisions and choices, but also to live with and bear those choices. We don't believe that we're capable enough of experiencing whatever the cause and effect is of those choices. So what do we do when we're experiencing this emotion? The first thing most people do is they rush to find some sort of relief. They rush to find some sort of comfort. So even in the positive sense, and this is where it's so crazy and where the term don't fear your potential actually comes in. And it's because when you start to imagine how high you can go, it is only then that you realize you have a fear of heights. And it's important that we have to realize fear of heights doesn't make us any less capable from standing atop the very heights from which we want our life to exist upon. This is the mistake that we make. We mistake emotional feeling. We mistake an emotional impulse, a sort of nervous system type reaction for a gut feeling. That those two things are not the same. You know how many people are disguising their anxieties as gut feelings? You know how many people are disguising their irrational fears as gut feelings? Gut feeling is intuitive. It's light. It flows. It comes and then it goes. It doesn't ruminate. It doesn't overstay its welcome. If something is a gut feeling, you know it already without even having to point a reason on it. But if you're completely overwhelmed with fear, anxiety, or maybe even excitement and nervousness and you can't tell where you're at, that's not your gut. That's your sort of nervous system. It's your emotional regulatory system. And whatever context we want to take that as, it's the part of us deep within that is unsure and doesn't trust ourselves enough to kind of mess around and find out, to say the classic term without using any profanity. Why are we so scared to find out? Because we don't believe we're capable enough of handling the effects of whatever choices that we make. And this is the greatest limitation in a complete identity system that is rooted and based upon in fear and anxiety. And it's so sneaky. And like I said before, you don't realize that you're scared of heights until you start imagining how high your life can go, how high it can climb, how high it can exist. And I don't mean this in terms of climbing any sort of ladder, but I mean this in terms of an emotional freedom where you're not limited to a certain aesthetic, where you're not limited to a certain comfort, where you're not walking a path because it's the safest, and that you trust who you are. You trust your ability to not only transform yourself, but reinvent yourself. And you feel empowered, not because of the things that are around you, not because of the validation that others give you, but because every single time when it counts, you make your own choices. And in figuring it out, you find out what it is that was meant to be taught, why it is your heart was feeling compelled in any certain direction. So just because you can't tell what that nervousness, excitement, anxiety is about, doesn't mean you have to cower away from it. Observe it, look at it, and give it time to sort of spread into the space that is your awareness. When a strong emotional impulse comes about, when a limitation disguised as a gut feeling comes about, it's important that we give it space. Let that emotion, whatever it's tangled with, all those different categories, whatever we want to label that emotion, because we can't label it one thing, because it sort of feels like nervousness, it sort of feels like excitement, it sort of feels like anxiety. You don't have to label it right away. Allow it to untangle itself within the space of your awareness. When you create space within yourself, when you don't jump to conclusions, when you don't have a say, when you don't have an opinion on the matter, you just want the truth of whatever is going to free you emotionally the most, then you could find out the truth of your being and what you truly want. So if there's something that you want to do, and the thing that's stopping you is a feeling inside of yourself, I wouldn't be so quick to rush into disregarding whatever it is that you were seeking to do in the first place. Because what's going to happen is we can do this with absolutely everything in our life. We can do this with absolutely everything. We can make excuses for why it's not worth it. We can create logical reasons that fuel our avoidant tendency. There's always going to be an easy way out. There's always going to be a more comfortable way to do things. And the point isn't that we're always trying to make things the easiest. The point is we're going to go about things the exact way that we wanted to. And no matter the difficulties that stand in that way, we do it because what we're looking for and what we want to do was born from our own will. And those are the two roads that lie ahead of us whenever there's an impulse, whenever there's a desire to do something. And I'm not talking about bad desires. I'm talking about fulfilling desires. I'm talking about making music, writing poetry, starting a business, whatever it may be. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what it may be. It can even just be an emotional hurdle that you're looking to overcome. It doesn't matter. You can take the road of compromising and negotiating with fear and anxiety and taking that road, or you can take the road of, this is what I want to do, and whatever is standing in my way within me, emotionally, fearfully, anxiously, I don't know if anxiously is a word, but I'm going to move through that. Because in moving through that, two things happen. Number one, I get closer to the very thing that I was looking to find out. And number two, moving through those fears and anxieties frees me, liberates me in a way that nothing else in this world can. Nothing else in this world can free me emotionally as much as me setting an intention to do something and observing what stands in my way within my own being. When something like this happens, this is like the teacher within you literally showing you exactly what you have to do. It's showing you the roadmap to absolutely everything you've ever wanted. And I can't stress this enough. You are not limited. You are not limited. The prerequisite to what you want is the self-belief, bravery, and courage. That's the prerequisite. That's the initiation. all the turmoil that you have to go through after that. That's the process. That's what you are asking for. You are asking for that anxiety and fear to get in your way. Because yeah, it's really uncomfortable, but as a result of being uncomfortable, we become comfortable in more situations. So it's not like we're asking anybody or anything to give us more difficulties. It's not that we're doing that. It's that we're not conforming the things that we want because of fear and anxiety. It's crazy that I kind of just came to this revelation on my own, is much of the time we don't even have to chase the storm, but rather all we have to do is be honest with ourselves and what we want and go towards that, and inevitably the storm will meet us there. This kills two birds with one stone. In going towards the storm, you are going to be faced with whatever stands in your way and tries to limit you. Because those same fears and anxieties that you're avoiding, that you're ruminating on and thinking about in your room when you're tucked into bed and all comfortable, where do you think they're going to be when you try to do the very thing you've always wanted to do? They're going to come about, and they're going to come strong. And it is imperative that you don't turn back, because that's when you reset. When you turn back, you reset. It's not a loss, but you reset. And it's crazy to think that many of us were not taught to understand that all of the people that we look up to, all the people that do great things, it's not that they are inherently quote unquote better. It's that they fundamentally understood that faking it till you make it isn't just a phrase that people say. That first pretending to be asleep before you can fall asleep isn't just an esoteric quote. These are real practical guidances that are backed by neuroscience and psychology. Our brains create new wiring when we start to act in a different way and we don't accommodate our lives to fear and anxiety. When you accommodate your life to fear and anxiety, your brain learns to prioritize them rather than prioritizing excitement and passion. There's a YouTuber, and I don't go too deep into him. I think his name's Bashar. He says this thing a lot, and he says something along the lines of always act on your highest excitement, and you'll always be in the right place at the right time. I don't know anything too much more about him, but just breaking down that statement, always acting in your highest excitement. It's not necessarily that the excitement is what you've been looking for, but all that you must overcome is going to meet you on the road to fulfilling that excitement. Does that make sense? It's not that you're limited. It's that the limitations are the sort of lessons and the teachers that you need to actually becoming that version of yourself. And then when you become that version of yourself, there will be something else. And there might be another thing 5 years from now. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because the destination isn't what we really want. We want an emotional feeling. We want to feel fulfilled. And sure, getting to that thing that we want is going to fulfill us. But what's going to send a shiver down your spine, what's going to give you goosebumps, is when you realize that you are far more capable than you ever believed yourself to be. And that we had it all wrong. It's not that you were incapable. It's that you had to believe that you were capable of becoming something greater than you already were. That's it. We had to reverse the equation. We had to go back to the first part of the sentence instead of the end. It starts with the belief. And how do we fuel that belief? Action. We don't allow fear and anxiety to deter us away from the things that we want. If you just do that, that sentence is synonymous with act on your highest excitement all the time. It's the same truth. It's an emotional energy that you tap into. And you have to be relentless about what you want to experience. You deserve it. You deserve it. Notice all of the I don't deserve this come into play, not in the form of thought, but in the form of emotion. Why don't you deserve to be successful? Why don't you deserve to, make a life for yourself over your passion? Why don't you deserve to have that person in your life, whatever it may be? Why not? You do deserve it. You do deserve it. You don't have to convince yourself. You don't have to. Just input that code. Know that code is the truth, fundamentally. Because deservedness and all of these different things, it's all subjective. Everything is subjective. And you have to use that subjectivity and fuel that into the reality that you believe is objective. When it's all said and done, we will realize reality itself was always significantly more malleable than we thought it was. More than anything else, it was an open canvas. The limitations were self-imposed. The fear and anxiety was self-imposed. The walls that we put up, all the hurdles and obstacles, much of them were self-imposed. And I'm not saying that there aren't real life hard difficulties that people and me and you and everyone that we have to overcome. I'm not talking about that. Those are out of our control. And we will do with those what we must as they come about. That's not what I'm talking about. Whenever we talk about anything, self-development, personal growth, self-improvement, it's important that we're realizing we don't neglect that unfortunate things happen in life. But there's nothing we can do about those things. So we will deal with them. And let us rather shift our focus, if we can, into what we can control. What you can control is the self-inflicted suffering. You can't change whatever is going to happen outside of you. You can't change if it's going to rain. You can't change necessarily if your car is going to get a flat tire. Of course, you could realize something in hindsight, but what is hindsight? Hindsight is worthless. Everything changed for me when I realized that I didn't have to wait for permission to feel like I deserved what I wanted. It doesn't matter what you were taught when you were younger. It doesn't matter how society has perceived you. It doesn't matter the belief you have about yourself. Listen to the words I'm saying and place belief in them like they are a literal system that will create results in your life. I know that's weird wording, but I'm saying trust in the facilities of what we know to be true. Your mind will change if you are consistent, if you are relentless with becoming a version of yourself who acts in a different way. If you act in a different way, everything will change. If you don't allow fear and anxiety to deter you from what you truly want to do, everything will change. All that is left for you is to feel the immense discomfort of freedom. Feel the immense discomfort of breaking through to freedom. All that is left after you have dropped off all the mind games at the front door is simply sitting with the discomfort of breaking free and resisting running from it. Don't run. Don't run. In the moment, it's not going to feel like you are strong enough. It's not going to feel like you are capable enough. And it's not going to feel like you are powerful enough to overcome whatever fear, whatever anxiety, whatever discomfort is being felt within you. But just sit. And soon enough, your power, your strength will be revealed. That was a bit of a, motivational tone, maybe a more energetic tone that I usually take, and it's crazy because it's really late at night here, but I just felt like speaking about this so much. But that's it for today's episode, and if you guys want to check out my book, I'm going to leave a link in the description. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and if you're listening on Spotify, thank you for listening as always. I appreciate you, and I love all you guys so much, and I can't wait to keep growing this channel and everything else that's associated with it. So other than that, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.